We're running out of time, and later, so I've just got three questions which I've molded into two. So I will, and then I will open it up to the floor, and Cheryl has to leave, so maybe people who have questions for him can direct it to him first. But since we are talking about this construction of ethnicity and the idea of Malayness, the nature of Malayness changed, of course, for a very long time. Those who were considered Malays prior to World War II, had it expanded to include other communities post-World War II. The notion of the Malay itself as a cultural phenomenon was basically codified by two British administrators, Wilkinson and Winstead, who wrote the papers on Malay subjects and then eventually equated it with the Malay Land Reservation Act later. But nevertheless, they are realities. The Malay is, of course, a lot more complicated when you don't look at the Malay purely legally, but look at the Malay culturally, an area I've done work in for close to 30 years. My question to you, Cheryl, is this. There is a serious problem of essentialism in Malay politics today. The founders of the Malay nationalist movement, from language, people like Zabah, envisaged the Malay to come out of his period of colonialism to be a worldly, cosmopolitan, competitive figure. Today, we perceive Malay politics, essentially, to be getting increasingly insular. Am I wrong? And could you explain why that is?
Ooh, tough one. Maybe I'll sidestep the exact question of why that is, because I might fall into some random hot soup. Maybe the more productive way to answer you is to say that first, I actually agree, and I've written about this. I've spoken about it even in the most right-wing events, which is the UMNO Youth Assembly, UMNO Assembly, General Assembly, in which I think this idea of ethnic absolutism or essentialism is really something that has its appeal and allure because it simplifies and it appeals to the most base level understanding of difference. And maybe this is human nature. This is the easiest way, from Brexit to Trump. You have different examples of how appealing to base references of identity is often the easiest way to exercise people's passions and emotions. So what better way than to essentialize and absolutize the idea that Melayu kena macam ni. If you don't sokong dasar ekonomi baru or you have some critique about DAB, then you're not an essential Malay. If you have a more complicated sense of what 153 ought to be, you're sometimes deemed as disloyal or an outsider. And oftentimes the idea of, and all forms of nationalism and racism feeds off this, right? They don't always, quote-unquote, attack the outsider, the non-ethnicized person, or rather the non-Malay in this case. They would go after anyone who is meant to be within the community, within this closed-off insular idea of what the Malayness ought to be, and they would make sure that you are seen as not representative of what true Malayness is. So, again, in a roundabout way, what I'm trying to say is essentialism is easy to sell, very easy to sell. You don't need to appeal to bigger, more humanist type of ideals. All you have to say is that we are under siege, we are essentially different from these other folks, and they're trying to get you. And therefore we need to band together, etc., etc. So it's a very simplified and simplistic narrative that's easy to sell. So what do we have to do about it? I guess in the most humble manner, that's what folks like me try to do within such political parties. We don't always get the best love. You wanted somebody a bit more radical and however you define it, maybe somebody a bit more essentialist. than me to be here and maybe spar with you, but you got me. And I'm one of those guys who will try and argue with, through the language that I think will be most, has highest currency with such crowd, that there is a bigger sense of what Melayu should be. That's closer to the one that you envisage, or the one that you articulated, which is one that can compete with, if you're going to see people as essentially, if you're going to see racists as something that is real and there are different non-Malay folks in the country, then see it as, how do I compete with them on an even keel? How do I win based on merit? So those kind of language and those kind of terms are what I try to bring. It's not easy. So your last question was whether you're wrong. You're not wrong, because I myself face some resistance, a lot of resistance, and therefore it's like being in a I can't use that language, but a tea sandwich, in which the quote-unquote liberals and cosmopolitans with whom you might actually have a lot of affinity for, values-wise, see you as, why are you in this party and why are you saying these things? They don't like you. At the same time, your more Puritan, essentialist brethren in the political party think you're a sellout. So maybe that's why some of us feel that under these configurations, it might be useful to express our more moderate values through an NGO called the Centre.